My name is Jonathan Silver. I'm the Director for Academic Programs at the Tikva Fund. In the midst of our 2014 Summer Fellowship on Jewish Thought and Citizenship, I caught up with my friend and teacher, Dr. Micah Goodman, of Ein Prod Academy in Israel. Dr. Goodman, so much of the coverage in the United States about the current situation in Israel, so much of it is focused on Israel's national security imperative to protect its citizens. It's focused on Israel's increasing isolation from allies around the world. So much of it exists at the political level. But one of the things at Tikva that we think is important is to try to understand the deeper ideas that underlie politics as it takes place on a day-to-day level. And I was wondering, now that Israel, the nation, is under such great strain, do you think that there's something deeper one can tell as the IDF tries to defend the state?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things, and the first thing is that this war has a different flavor to it. And I think about the way Israelis behaved in the national reaction 2006 in the Second Lebanon War, or 2008 in Oferet Yitzukah, the first time we entered Gaza. And now there's a different flavor, and that is that there's a sense that there's moral clarity around this war. That 70–80% of Israelis understand that what's happening here is that Israel is stronger, is a lot stronger than Hamas. There's an asymmetry in power. What Hamas does, because it targets our citizens and then hides behind their citizens, so what it does, it balances the asymmetry in power with asymmetry of ethics. By attacking us unethically and hiding behind their civilians, again, unethically, then they balance the equation. And they balance our asymmetry of power with asymmetry in ethics, and that's why it seems like it's a balanced battle. Because when they hide among civilians, if you bomb them and kill many civilians, you lose, and if you don't bomb them and don't kill the terrorists, you lose again. And that's a dilemma that terrorists are presenting in front of Western civilization throughout the globe, and that's the dilemma that Israelis are facing. And because the majority of Israelis understand this, there's a lot of moral clarity. As our Prime Minister said, we are guarding our civilians from missiles, and they're guarding their missiles with civilians. So there's a lot of moral clarity in Israel today. 70–80%, maybe even more Israelis it's very clear to them, and for the first time in a long time, that this battle, we're on the right side of history and of ethics. But at the same time, there's moral clarity, it seems like, and we're doing this on the 30th of July, a lot is going to change. But it seems like there's not a lot of clarity when it comes to the military vision of this operation. Because here's the thing. The majority of Israelis want us to demilitarize the Gaza Strip. That same majority doesn't want us to have responsibility over the Gaza Strip. And between these two interests of Israel, there's a conflict. Because it seemed like it'll be very hard to demilitarize Gaza without conquering and therefore owning Gaza. There's a conflict here. So I think, we're not facing, for the first time in many years, an ethical inner conflict, at least not a powerful one, but we are facing a military inner conflict.
As Operation Protective Edge continues, and the men and women of the IDF wrestle with the military conflict that you just described, is there something that one can see about the Israeli citizenry, civil society in Israel, which is distinctive from, say, past moments of military strain?
Yeah. Well, I would say there's 3 levels here. The first level is that when this all began, before we entered Gaza with our boots. So Israel was shocked by Kippat Barzel, Iron Dome. And we realized, wow, Israeli creativity, Israeli initiative, what we like to call the startup nation, that's not only bringing us to NASDAQ, that's also protecting and guarding us. There was a sense that Israeli brilliance and creativity is guarding Israeli civilians. But then the ground operation began. And terrorists started coming out of the ground, attacking soldiers in kibbutzim. And many of my friends and students were recruited to Miluim, to reserves, and they start to guard. And actually, it seems like they're guarding literally the land, the ground, showing tremendous acts of bravery. A good example, Ghassan Elian, the commander of the Golani Brigade, he was hurt, injured, goes to the hospital. A few days later, he leaves the hospital. He's back there expressing great, exceptional Israeli bravery. As someone said, it's Israeli brilliance protecting us from the sky, and Israeli bravery protecting us from the ground. But at the same time, while Iron Dome is guarding us from the sky and the bravery of our soldiers is guarding us from the ground, at the same time, Israelis are exposed to exceptional forms of solidarity. A week ago, I went to the funeral of Max, the Chayal Boded, the lonely soldier that came to Israel. I wake up in the morning and I say to myself, it was 11 o'clock, I heard in the news that there's this boy from LA, he was 24, he came here, he served in the army, and I figured no one's going to go to his funeral. He has no family, and it's 11 o'clock in the morning, it's in the middle of the day, and people have lives. And I figured, I don't have a life. I guess I should go. And I come there, and there's 30,000 people there. I guess everyone went through that thought process. And John, everyone was there. There were Haredim, there was secular, right, left, some that might oppose the war, the majority that don't oppose. Everyone was there. It was an exceptional form of solidarity. The chief rabbi of the Israeli army said, when he said that Max came to Israel and joined the army, so we'll know that we're not alone. And then he said, Max, look at 30,000 people that are here to make sure that you'll never be alone. These are exceptional forms of solidarity. A student of mine in Efrat had an initiative to go help out soldiers that are wounded. And she goes to the hospital and she realizes that all the soldiers are taking care of. Hundreds of people are coming and giving them goodies and helping them out and encouraging them. And she realizes the only thing that they're missing is good books to read. So she goes to Steimatsky. It's a national bookstore. It's like Barnes and Nobles, but just Israeli size. And she asked, maybe you have some books that you have extras that you could share with soldiers, and they didn't have any. But the person in Steimatsky said, well, I have a different solution. And she sends an email out to all the workers of Steimatsky, and the workers of Steimatsky, which make minimum wage 23.5 shekels an hour, the only bonuses they have that every month they get they have a wage, they could get some books for free. They all give their bonuses, their books, to the soldiers. In Ein Prat, we had an idea. Now it's summertime, and for a few weeks, the campus is empty. So we figured, hey, we could host families from the south and help them out, so they can, and maybe some graduates of Ein Prat can babysit, so they won't have to, so they can have, the parents can have a vacation. So they approached the organization that deals with families from the south, and the reaction was, wait in line. Wow. It turns out that there's much more families that want to host families from the south than there are families from the south that need to be hosted. What Israel is going through is an overflow, almost an inflation of goodwill and solidarity. So to sum her up, we find Israeli brilliance that's guarding us from the sky, and Israeli bravery that's guarding us from the land, and Israeli solidarity and love that's all over the place. Chokhmah and Gvura and Ahava. This is a tremendous expression of Israeliness that I don't remember in 2008 and in 2006. There's something in the Israeli character that is now exposed. Something great, something beautiful, something that we should remember after this is over, that we met something very extraordinary within the Israeli character. And at the same time, we have to say, because we're also Jewish, we also have to complain, there are also ugly sides of Israel that are expressed here, that sometimes the shared solidarity and love is sometimes expressed with lack of tolerance towards people with different views, people who think differently. And these are also things that we'll have to work on after the war is over, how to try to cultivate in Israel. There's so much solidarity and love, and at the same time, even though that there's not there is a lot of moral clarity, how can we still have a civil conversation, listening to the people and fighting for the people that you don't agree with? That will also be a challenge that I'm sure we'll be talking about, reflecting on after this war is over.
Micah, thank you for sharing your insight and wisdom.
Thank you. Let me make one last comment. We're in the middle of a war. Napoleon said that a war is the kingdom of uncertainty. It's the 30th of July. Everything I said is right for the first, I believe it's right for the first 4 weeks. But where this will take us, this is going to be probably interesting, and hopefully it will take us to better places.
Dr. Goodman, thank you.